You are listening to Leading the Factory Forward with your host, Lynn Friest. We share interviews with manufacturing experts and strategies for embracing the digital future, recruiting a new workforce, finding new business. Lynn is an advanced manufacturing strategist and leadership consultant who is on a mission to show manufacturing leaders how to improve their current operations while preparing for a digital future. And here's your host, Lynn Friest.
Welcome, manufacturing leaders. You're listening to Leading the Factory Forward. My name is Lynn Friest, and I'm honored to serve as your host. Whether this is your first time tuning in or you're a returning listener, thank you. Our goal is to help manufacturing leaders deliver great products, earn a great living, and learn how to make themselves and their organizations even better. My personal goal is to serve as a guide for leaders to do the following: get clear on where they are now, explore what is possible for the future, and craft action plans to create their highly competitive factory of the future. In today's episode, we're going to talk about 5 books that have helped me form my thinking and really helped me prepare for the future. So let's get started. As manufacturers, we're living in a world that the military has labeled a V.U.C.A world. That is, it's a world that is volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. And more to the point for us as business leaders, we face many new challenges. 3 key ones are: we have new competition, we have new technology, and we need to have new people come in. So in this episode, I want to share a couple of insights from each of 5 books that help create in me a mindset that has helped move my thinking forward. Here are 3 things I'll hope you'll learn from this episode. What are the key ideas I got from these books? How and why those ideas might be useful to you as a manufacturing leader, and then what might be some first steps that you could take with those ideas. So briefly, the 5 books are The Fifth Discipline, The Art and Practice of the Learning Organization by Peter V.U.C.A, Deep Work, Rules for Focused Success in a Distracted World by Cal Newport, The Power of Full Engagement, Managing Energy, Not Time, is the Key to High Performance and Personal Renewal by Jim Lohr and Tony Schwartz, Leadership on the Line, Staying Alive Through the Dangers of Leading by Ronald Heifetz, and finally, Stewardship, Choosing Service Over Self-Interest by Peter Block. So the first book, The Fifth Discipline, The Art and Practice of the Learning Organization by Peter V.U.C.A. There are 2 key ideas we'll explore. One is the idea of having a systems thinking mindset, and 2 is how do we develop as a learning organization and create our future. So, systems thinking mindset. We are taught to break a problem into its component parts, but organizations are not machines. So in doing that, we often lose sight of how all the parts interact with each other. Peter V.U.C.A says, vision without systems thinking ends up painting a lovely picture of the future with no deep understanding of the forces that must be mastered to move from here to there. And he has a great example in the book. It's called The Beer Game. It's a case study on manufacturing and delivering beer as a retailer, wholesaler, marketing director, and operations director deal with a spike in demand. In this game, people make seemingly rational decisions from their viewpoint, but the end result is wild swings in inventory between shortages and extreme excess. It's one of those things where if you can't step back and see the whole picture of what's going on in your organization, you end up making bad decisions for good reasons. The second item in the book is a learning organization. How do we intentionally learn and develop both ourselves and our teams? Again, a quote from the author: taking in information is only distantly related to real learning. It would be nonsensical to say, I just read a book about bicycle riding. I've now learned that. So the idea for us is we need to help our teams think about these complex issues. We need to engage our teams in deciding on how the work will be done. And then we need to model the role of effective discussion and dialogue for our teams, being able to work with multiple ideas and viewpoints constructively. Again, in this uncertain world we're at, we need to be able to help our teams talk through difficult issues, see the big picture, and basically learn new skills. So, getting to the why would this be useful to you? Step back and look at the big picture. Help your teammates do it also. And try to look for real root cause as you deal with some of these complex issues. And finally, in today's rapidly changing world, you have to have a mindset for organizational learning for yourself and your teams. It's truly a survival skill. What might be a first step to take? Think of a recent problem and ask yourself why it happened. And then ask yourself again 5 times to look deeper and deeper into what were the root cause for that. See if there's something that's out there in your system that's causing the problem, not simply papering over it. Reflect on how you or one of your teammates recently acquired a new skill. Can you be more intentional in doing that kind of activity again? So with that, systems thinking and having a learning mindset for your organization are the 2 key things I got out of this book. Our second book, Deep Work, Rules for Focused Success in a Distracted World by Cal Newport. In this book, he talks about the need to do work that makes a difference. He calls it deep work. It's valuable and it's also rare. It's unusual that people take the time or have the skills to do deep work. But it's vitally important as we move into the future to be able to master complex skills and tasks. And you think of your own business, whether it be new technology or new people or just new business models. You have to be able to build new skills and build them quickly. You also want to be able to produce high-value work with quality and speed. And the other thing he mentions in there that's key is that deep work can only be done for about 4 hours a day in his research and other people's research. So again, this isn't something that you're going to be doing all day long, but you do have to be intentional about how do I find that key time that I can do the stuff that really makes a difference for myself and my business. Cal has a quote that if you don't produce, you won't thrive, no matter how skilled or talented you are. So again, it's back to creating great products, creating great content. And then to enable the deep work, you have to limit yourself from doing shallow work and especially distractions. He says, efforts to deepen your focus will struggle if you don't simultaneously wean your mind from a dependence on distraction. The whole idea of distractions is it's easy to do, it keeps us away from our deep work, and quite frankly, he recommends that we embrace boredom and not distraction, because that's often what we've been doing is if we're bored, we go check Facebook or we'll wander around in our email for an extra hour or so. So he says, shut these things off and just focus. You may be bored, but that'll lead you eventually back into the deep work that's very important to you. So again, returning to our questions of why this might be useful to you. Decide what your high-value work is. Second, be aware of how daily distractions affect you and your team's effectiveness. How is simple busyness not really helping you, but just hurting your success? What might be a couple of first steps to take? I would suggest take 15 minutes to list out your work activities and think about the value add of each of those activities. Where's the value that you're adding to your business and to your success? Stay off email for an hour or two. See how that feels. See if that allows you to do something, but just turn off email for an hour or two. So again, this book, the key ideas, the importance of being able to do deep work, and the fact that it's not easy. You have to really train yourself to do it. And then 2, paying attention to how distractions are affecting you and really keeping you away from doing great work in your business and your life. My third book is The Power of Full Engagement. Managing Energy, Not Time, is the Key to High Performance and Personal Renewal by Jim Lohr and Tony Schwartz. So here, energy, not time, is our most precious resource. They have a quote, energy, not time, is the fundamental currency of high performance. These guys have gotten their background from coaching elite athletes and high-performance corporate people. And they're saying to really have high performance, you really have to manage energy. And they go into it a little deeper. The second thing is you have to deal with the whole you. You have physical energy, emotional energy, mental energy, and spiritual energy. As they say, to be fully engaged, we must be physically energized, emotionally connected, mentally focused, and spiritually aligned to a purpose that's beyond our immediate self-interest. So the two key ideas here are, along with the concept of managing energy, it's you need to balance performance and recovery. There's a pulse or rhythm to life, and certainly they found it in athletes and corporate people. So you have to be sensitive to that. You can't always be on a sprint. You have to allow for some rhythm. Otherwise, we've all seen that. We can spend the afternoon distracted because we don't have the energy to really do the great work that we're trying to do. So the whole idea is you have to have balance. Now, recovery is not something necessarily that takes all the time. They noted that elite tennis players actually recover during the 20 seconds between points. So again, knowing how you recover, taking time to recover, but remembering always there's a balance between performance and recovery. The final point that I got from them is the power of positive rituals or habits or processes. If you've got something in place that you're just doing each and every day, you don't have to expend energy or remember how to decide to do something. So they really encourage, and they, again, from their research with athletes and corporate executives, have rituals or habits or processes that you do every day so you're not devoting your precious energy to remembering to do something special. It's just part of how you do your work. So why is this useful to you? In a changing world, just working harder and longer is not really a long-term or a viable answer. The best work in your organization is being done when energy is present, and you can probably recognize it in yourself and others, whether it be at the middle of the afternoon or whatever. You can tell when high-energy work is being performed. Look at your routines, your habits, or processes. What are the things that shape your day now, and are they helping you? So in terms of first steps, think about what time and what are you doing when you're best and most energized? And the second would be, where are you finding recovery currently? The 2 points are, pay attention to your energy. How do you get it? And then pay attention to recovery. How do you recover so that you can have energy to do the great work you want to do? The fourth book is Leadership on the Line, Staying Alive Through the Dangers of Leading by Ronald Heifetz. And again, Ronald's talking about how do you, as a leader, understand the things that are going on around you and not just be focused on the day-to-day busyness. Leadership is an improvisational art. You may have an overarching vision, clear orienting values, and even a strategic plan, but what you actually do from moment to moment cannot be scripted. To be effective, you must respond to what is happening. One of the key ideas is get on the balcony, don't stay on the dance floor. He gives a quote, "Great athletes can at once play the game and observe it as a whole." So the idea is you need to not just focus on that day-to-day activity, the firefighting. You need to get back, and as we've talked about earlier with systems thinking, you need to step back and see the big picture. What's really going on here for everybody involved? Distinguish between adaptive and technical challenges for you and your people. Adaptive are things that are new. You don't know how to solve them. You have to actually figure them out. Technical challenges are things, it's really execution. You know how to do this. It's just a matter of, have we got the right people doing the right things at the right time? You also need to find out where your people are as you move forward. Again, understand their mindset, because if you don't have them moving along with you, it can be very difficult. He's got a term he calls listen for the song beneath the words. In other words, what's the tone? What's the overall thinking? What's the overall feeling of the people there? You won't often be able to script that, but you need to be aware of it. And finally, read the behavior of people. There's one thing to say, this is what we will do, but there's another thing to say, this is what people are doing. So it could be your team leaders. They may be agreeing with you, but their behavior doesn't necessarily reflect that. So pay attention to that. The final piece then is you need to manage the conflict, because that will inevitably happen. You try not to overwhelm your team with the conflict. And some of that is you accept the responsibility for your piece of the mess. You help people tackle controversial problems. How do we talk about things where we have different ideas and different viewpoints? In some cases, you want to try to pace the change. If there's a lot of change going on in your organization, you need to be able to introduce it pieces at a time and not necessarily overwhelm people. And then finally, you need to be able to show them the future often. So it's important for you to say, this is where we're going. This is how we're going to get there. It is difficult, but it's going to be worth it. After this conversation, how this might be useful to you? Well, chasing the hot job is not creating the future. You're going to have to step back, understand what's going on, because you're going to have to shape the future and not just react to it. And then in an uncertain environment, you need to manage the drama. So you need to work with your teams, help them understand how things are going, and help them move forward into the future with you. So what might be a first step to take? Why don't you reflect on the last couple of days? What might you have chosen to do differently? What's the bigger picture compared to what you actually saw or actually did? Or did you focus on the hot jobs that really didn't, in the end, help move the big picture ahead? Secondly, think about how you could provide better clarity to your team on the big picture. Do people even truly understand? It may be extremely clear to you where you're trying to go and what you're trying to do and what needs to be done. But does everybody really understand that, or are they just seeing their small piece of the puzzle? 2 steps for this book. The key things are 1, get on the balcony, understand the big picture, and 2, help your teams understand the change they're going through, manage that change with them. So our final book is Stewardship, Choosing Service Over Self-Interest by Peter Block. And this is an idea where how do we look differently at our relationship between us as leaders and the people that work with us? As Peter Block says, all we have to create the future is to change the nature of our conversations, to go from blame to ownership, from bargaining to commitment, and from problem solving to possibility. He goes on to say, transformation comes more from pursuing profound questions than seeking practical answers. So the key idea for me in this book is this difference between what he calls patriarchy or hierarchy, basically our traditional mindset of how we run an organization, and changing it to one of partnership. In other words, we're going to be thinking of the people that work with us as partners as opposed to people we're taking care of. He finds that a fundamentally challenging idea because he says once we're in the business of taking care of people, then that robs them of some of their authority. And in fact, that's the next step of what he says is with that different mindset that are working with people as partners, we give the work and the authority back to people. It's not just abdicating. He's not saying that all. So he says there's requirements for effective partnership. 1, we have to have a shared purpose. So we have to have shared with them what's the purpose of the work we're trying to do. There's an idea that they have a right to say no, and it's not necessarily the no to the overarching purpose, but maybe to say no as to how they're going to do something. They're closest to the work, so we have to really be thinking about letting them develop how they're going to do the work. Then there's joint accountability. Without accountability, you can't really have a partnership. So again, it's not we're abdicating everything, but how can we still provide leadership without necessarily being in charge? And finally, it does require transparency. Everybody has to be on the same page. Everybody has to know what the key issues are. Everybody kind of has to know what's going on. So those are the key things. How do you really start thinking of people as partners as opposed to employees or people that you're going to direct and take care of? So why might this be useful to you? Traditional directive leadership or micromanagement is hard to sustain in a fast-changing environment. It's just very hard to micromanage people when things are changing so quickly. There's not enough of you to go around. And then the other thing is, while engaging people is hard, it does help you move faster. If everybody has a clear picture of where they're moving forward and they've got the work and the ability to do it, you will, as an organization, move faster than you have in the past when you tried to micromanage your way forward. So what might be a first step to take? Take 15 minutes and think about your team as partners. How might you lead differently? Think about yesterday or the day before. If you were working with partners, would anything have gone differently than how it did? And second, how might you make more visible to your team the issues that worry you? I remember one manager saying, if I'm staring at the ceiling at night over some kind of an issue, I want everybody to know what that issue is, so I'm not the only one that's trying to work on it. So again, this whole idea for this book is, how do we think of the people that work with us as partners and not as employees? So that wraps up these 5 books. And while these books contain many, many more insights and lessons, this has just been a summary of some of those that have influenced my thinking the most over a long period of time. In the future, I plan to revisit some of these ideas, dig a little deeper on them, and expand how they might help you create your future. So a quick summary of the ideas. 1, develop a systems thinking mindset. Learn how to create your own learning organization, how you and your teams will get better. Start training yourself to do deep work and help others to do it also. Focus on managing your energy and managing just your time. Build on the power of routines or habits in yourself and your business. Get on the balcony to see the big picture and help your people understand that big picture. And finally, begin thinking of your teammates as partners and not simply as employees. So that's it for today's episode. Show notes and links to the resources mentioned in the podcast will be found at my website, linfrias.com. You can also follow me on LinkedIn and Facebook. I also invite you to leave a review on iTunes and share your comments or suggestions. And along with your comments, please be sure to share your name and an organizational link, and I'll give you a shout out in a future episode. Until next time, may you have great success in leading your factory forward. And my wish for you and your organization is to keep making, keep earning, and keep learning.